Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Print Island and to the Lighthouse. My name is Richard Askam, and as you know by now, I am the Lighthouse Keeper. And I have to say today, it's probably as cold as I've ever been in the Lighthouse. And as you can see, I am dressed up for the occasion. But my guest today, who's coming all the way from South Africa, clearly has not seen the weather forecast for the Lighthouse and is dressed. Well, I can only assume, Jean, that you've seen a different forecast to me.
I have, and I hope the sun's going to shine on me because clearly I haven't dressed for the occasion.
Well, listen, you are more than welcome. I've put the heating on, so you'll be fine. In just a few moments. So, but it's an absolute pleasure to have with me Jean Lloyd today in the Lighthouse here on Print Island, and it's the first time that you and I have really chatted online. So I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about you, who you are as a human being, before we get anywhere near the print industry.
Thank you. And it's exciting to be chatting to you because obviously all the hype around Print Island and what it's about and what it's bringing to the industry, I think, you guys are on the right track for sure.
Thank you. Well, that's nice to hear, and we're only 5 months into this project, and already, it's really interesting how, I guess, a slightly different approach to largely the same problems, but you can come at these problems from a different direction, and and I say problems. There's good news as well as bad news, like there is in any industry. But I guess for anybody out there that doesn't know who the hell you are, Jean, give us that 30-second flyby pitch of who you are, what you do, what you've done. And why you didn't bring a scarf to Print Island today.
Well, as I say, I clearly came to the wrong lighthouse because, I come from a sunshine country, although I've lived all over the world where my job has taken me. Today, yes, I was expecting sunshine, so excuse me. But I've been in this industry for almost 30 years. Scary to say because I kind of you don't know where the time's gone. I have I'd say most of my career focused on the digital print side of things. I joined Heidelberg, which was a great many years of my career. And Heidelberg and Kodak did a joint venture with digital. And so both companies sort of came together, and it got to a point where eventually you had to decide what side of the fence you're on. You're going Heidelberg, you're going Kodak. Kodak was then going to take over and focus on the digital part of the business because they obviously started some, call it a division that was a joint venture and then eventually split it sort of up. I went with the Kodak side because I wanted to continue with digital. I had a passion for it, and obviously I had insights into Inkjet, what was coming. And at that stage, it was all digital. I had to launch digital in South Africa, which I did with a great team very, very successfully. And I think that was a huge eye-opener for everyone in the world going, oh my gosh, these guys have come and rocked the industry and the nation, the country. And I was then asked to take the same business model and go and roll it out in 22 other countries, which we were responsible for. So off I was on a plane, kids packed up, moved countries, and took on a global position of launching digital in quite a few countries. And then Inkjet was creeping in, and I was given the responsibility of basically managing the first beta site that came out with a great team that I had put together. Just from there, that just grew. Obviously, we had some challenges. You can imagine the first Inkjet beta site, we had quite a few challenges. So we had to try and do other things to try and keep the team busy while we were trying to fix the challenges that a lot of OEMs are only experiencing now. Yes, it was great because we had the time to almost educate, let's say, ourselves as well as the industry on what Inkjet and what digital print could actually do for global companies and for brands. And so I must say, for me, it was an educational, exciting time. We had opportunities then to sell print heads and what you could actually do with print heads, which now everybody's got the print bars. So those days were hands-on making all of this happen. And there were quite a few countries, quite a few companies in the UK that were doing amazing campaigns and things for Marks and Spencers. And, they were just wow. And so, yeah, we actually learned the hard way. And then to sell presses, we realized that we got to show people how they can make money. So we were inviting brands, doing presentations to brands, getting the brands hungry for this. And then it was almost reverse psychology, because the brands were saying to the printer, so when are you getting this? Because we want to do this. And the printer would look at me and say, oh, what have you done? Because now I've got to buy the press. But anyway, launched digital, sort of, I would say then it was for the Europe, Africa, Middle East region as such. It was obviously taking off in the States. I looked after this side of the fence. And then they asked me to just, if I would run the UK and the Nordic regions and that, because there was huge potential to, turn Inkjet into success. So I did that for a couple of years. And sadly, as things happen, a tragedy actually struck my life, and I had to come back home for probably about 18 months. But the company were great, and they said to me, while you're there, could you try and get the Middle East and Africa off the ground with digital, with Inkjet? And so I spent quite a bit of time getting that off the ground again. And yes, I then joined another OEM, help them get off the ground. And so I must say, I've had a very exciting career. Probably 16 years later, I then went and I joined I was spoken into a fantastic position that was there on the digital packaging and labels part of the business. And it was with Keypoint, and they had just bought a company with two gentlemen that were bringing their skills across and needed to train somebody to basically take it over. So I had the best training ever. I got two guys that I'm still very, very good friends with, who were my mentors, if you want to call it that. And I learned about the digital packaging industry, and wow, I was very nervous to do it in the beginning, because I've been in commercial for most of my life, and, since 99. But I got to say, it was obviously educational, exciting, and just opened up my eyes and the doors to so many other things and opportunities. So I did that for a bit. And then, as you know, I got into the media space, so but always been in print, mostly focused on digital, and I've got a passion for this industry. Absolutely love it.
And you've just also inadvertently won the Print Island Lighthouse Award for the longest 30-second introduction that anybody's ever done. The previous holder of that trophy was Pat McGrew, so you're in good company in that regard. But
so that's a whole lifetime of in such a short space. Okay.
Don't worry. It was brilliant to hear actually that whole overview, because it's a fascinating story, Jean, and it's one of the reasons that we wanted to get you onto Print Island to hear more about it. But I'm a little bit interested to know what got you into the industry in the first place, because a lot of people have family connections in the print industry and sort of grow up with the feeling of ink on their fingers. What was your background when you were sitting at school on the last day of school thinking, I can't wait to, what was your route in?
So I've grew up with handicapped parents, so we didn't have great insights of what career opportunities were out there. We didn't have money for studies, those kind of things. So my parents were both in print. They were factory workers, and they were in print. And I remember in the school holidays, I used to work there, and see, my mom was a factory worker then, so was my dad. I used to look upstairs and see the ladies upstairs in the office, and obviously the sales reps used to come in. And I used to think, I don't want to be on the factory floor. I want to be up there, And I remember having clear visions of that. My career path took a very different route, because then I got into the architectural space. But just by luck, there was a gentleman who was Danish running one of the Heidelberg, South Africa. And somebody said to me, you got to meet this guy. He's just amazing. And I got to say, I did. And I thought I could learn so much from him. I I did get a feel for this industry. I wanted to be in it, and that's it. I started off as marketing director, and loved it. And that was obviously across all the products, and that's what got me in. My grandfather, just by the way, was also used to be a web operator many moons ago. So it seems like it was in my blood, and I was meant to get back into it.
It is a recurring theme with people that I talk to, here on Print Island, that everybody's got a familial way in, to the industry. I mean, I come from the drinks industry background, as you know, and my dad was in that, and his dad was in that. So it's not unusual that there is
Yeah.
a family connection into an industry. But what's quite interesting, and this is why I'm fascinated by your story, is that might be the way in, but it's not the way forward. So when you say you saw what your parents did, but you looked upstairs and saw the glamorous people in their shiny suits and their fast cars, that looks more appealing to me. And I guess this is how the industry has grown so much over the last probably 3 generations, is because every new generation that comes in through that route sees something even more incredible and opportunities that the print industry has to offer. And through your time, working in that world, you must have seen huge change from day one to day 1001. It's been a massive change, hasn't it?
It has. And, I think when you grow up in a place like, let's call it South Africa, you're a bit sort of, you've got blinkers on. You're not seeing the whole world and what's happening out there. And with the position I had at Heidelberg, that took me sort of, obviously I had to travel the world to go and see what we were doing. And, there were launches and there were all kinds of stuff. And, then your eyes get open to what's happening. And we were always behind, and I say that with respect. South Africa, even today, I still find we're still quite a few years behind what's happening everywhere else. And it was always a negative for me. And I guess that's why I spent so much time working out the country, because, I wanted to be where the life was and where the opportunity is. And now looking back, you go, you know what? Now you feel like there's so much you can bring back because I've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, So it has. It's been huge change, but again, it's everybody goes print is boring and it's a boring industry, and you need to give me a couple of youngsters, and I'm going to convince them otherwise, because it's been fantastic to my life, my career, it's shaped who I am. It's really been awesome. So it depends which part of print I guess you get into, because I didn't become a machine minder or whatever. But even then, there's still such opportunity if you just have the enthusiasm and you want to better your life, I guess.
And I think that's a really good point, because unfortunately, one word, print, doesn't cover the variety and the range of opportunities and verticals and everything that we want to call it, that is within the industry. If you were to if you could say something to your younger self, if you had 5 minutes back with your younger self on day one in the print industry, what would you give yourself as advice?
I think there was so much fear that was driving and pushing me. And because I was a woman, and I was, those days I used to play golf. And, when I first started playing golf, those days there were no women on the golf course. There were 200 men and you were the only female. And there was always that, I think it's what they call the Stockholm syndrome or something. You always feel, you're not good enough, or it's a man's thing. And, so I kind of had this attitude where, if I can't beat them, I've got to join them, become one of the boys and, just do that. So just prove to them that I can outdrive them on the golf course and that. So I think my younger self, there was a lot of fear, in a sense, that held me back, because it's, as soon as people saw a woman, and especially with a lot of the countries that I was going into, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So you can imagine, they've never seen a female in these positions. And, so if I look back then, I think I should have, I would have, should have, could have, just taken a step and owned my confidence, because I always had it. But you let fear hold you back in so many different areas. And I think, and I see that with a lot of young women today, which is why I mentor quite a few, and I love getting involved in it, because it's like, you're brilliant at what you do. Don't doubt yourself, own it. So,
it's hugely important. Yeah, hugely important. And just so you know, Stockholm syndrome, by the way, is when a kidnap victim falls in love with their captor.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah,
However,
I think
no, that's fine. However, I think it's quite a good analogy because you fell in love with the print industry, which so it was your captor. So in many ways, it is Stockholm syndrome.
and I'm stuck here. Yeah, I'm 30 years later, and I don't
There you
regret
go.
any
There you go.
things.
Yeah. So tell me, Jean, looking back on 2025, I mean, it's been a difficult, an interesting year. Let's call it interesting year for in many ways, and we won't get into the whys and wherefores of all of it. But what have you as we get towards the holiday season, what are you looking back on this year as some of your highlights of what you've seen going on around that wonderful world of print?
So obviously things are moving and they're moving fast. And I think, digital is making huge inroads globally. And there's no turning back. I think the packaging industry is growing. There's so much that's actually happening. And I think, I've heard this so many times because coming back to South Africa, I had huge decisions. We got a home in London, we got a home here. And it's where do we want to stay? Where do we want to basically give back, because to me, the next few years are about giving back. And just something keeps pulling me back to South Africa. And I sat and I thought about it long and hard the other day. And I thought there's so much unfinished business here. And I feel that if you look at what's happening here and things that are happening sort of globally, you could you could assist in basically fast tracking a lot of different areas in this country, because you've seen it happen somewhere else. And you know what? It's it's like I always say, if you look at, everybody talks about packaging, the packaging industry at the moment, and this is happening, that is happening. I got to say, I've seen so much of the same thing happening on the commercial side. When we
Mm.
saw digital come into, Inkjet come into digital, we faced very similar challenges to what the packaging industry is facing. And I think, so if I just see what's happening globally, it's taking off. You can't stop it. The train has left the station ages ago. And I just look at countries like this where there's a hunger here that I haven't seen before. There's an interest here that I haven't seen before. And I'm talking from young people that are getting exposed to the industry and that. And obviously there's different nationalities here. I mean, we've got 11 official languages here in South Africa.
Wow.
And it's never been a country where you would see, call it young, ladies in, let's just say maybe a few white ladies were in this industry, but people of color never came into here. And I just think, wow. And I've seen so many of them over the last 2 years, 3 years, and they are hungry. Want they want more. And I just feel, so if you've got an opportunity to change all of that, and maybe I'm gone a bit off track with what you're asking me, but
No, that's fine.
there's this need to, I suppose, fast track people that are here that aren't, that aren't given them that opportunity maybe that I was, or, somebody saw something in me that hired me and put me in those positions. Not everybody's that fortunate.
Mm.
So I guess I just want to help quite a few people get on the right track and make a name for themselves, because there's a lot of focus on developing countries. Everybody's going, okay, well, what if these are developing countries? I mean, I've heard that so many times over the last 10 years. And in a lot of areas they are, but you've also got to look at, there's also challenges, and you've got to understand that. These are developing countries, and, people want to invest money here to try and, because obviously everybody wants to sell equipment, and they look at these countries and think, okay, we've got opportunities here. But I think you've also got to understand the challenges that come with it. And not many do. And I think that's kind of where I feel I could add a lot of value on both sides of the fence, because I know what works, I know what doesn't work, I know what you've got to be careful of. Because it's not as simple as ABC, and it's very
Mm.
corrupt. And you've got to know how to do
Mm.
corrupt business or
Mm.
turn a blind eye. It's just one of those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It's a reality of where we live and what happens in this industry.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
no,
think
that's really. It's really good insight, Jean, and I admire your desire to for that giving back, as you say, because I mean, ultimately, and you know this better than anybody, you know, it's a people industry, and so irrelevant of who they are or what gender they are or what color they are, it's a people industry, and
It's been,
for it to
and it's
continue.
yes,
Yeah, and you know, if it wants to continue for the next 100 years, as it has done very successfully for the last 1,000 years, you know, then you need those people engaged with it. And I guess you know the sort of the latest era, if you like, of content creators and AI generative content and so on and so forth, still all leads back to print. And
yes.
so whichever door you come through, your entry point doesn't really matter because you'll end up in the same place in the middle. So understanding that should take away some of that fear, shouldn't it, of people actually walking through that door in the first place?
100%. I agree with that. Um, and I know you and I have spoken about this briefly before, but you know, we also started, let's call it the South African Woman in Print. And you know, when we started 4 or 5 years ago, I was, I suppose, a co-creator of the idea. The Printing Federation wanted to do something, and I had a meeting, and you know, one of the key gentlemen that's the marketing director said to me, you know, because I'd launched a few women programs in different countries and that, so they wanted to pick my brain on a couple of things, and we just said, you know, this country so needs that, and let's put it together. And just to give you a few numbers, 5 years later, 4 years later, which was this year, we live streamed to 780,000 people in African countries that were,
Wow.
and the interest, we had just under 1,000 people come to our 3 different events, women mostly, obviously come to our events. And what I saw was this hunger and this need. And, you know, then I suppose, as you were saying, me as a little kid, you know, those years, there was nobody to hold my hand or guide me or, you know, advise me, I guess. And, you know, with the whole Women in Print, you know, federation, that's now really, I mean, the printing into the South African Printing Federation has done a fantastic job to get this to the next level. But there's this hunger with these women throughout South Africa that, oh my gosh, they want this and they want to learn and they want to know. And I've been to a few exhibitions and I've stood there and these women are on the stage and they owning it, and I'm like, wow, you know. So there's a lot of them then that approach me and go, how do I make the next step, and how do I get seen, and how do I get noticed? And I just realized, you know, they could actually use a helping hand and some guidance. So the Federation on their own have actually set up now a whole mentorship program. And I think it's exciting because I think, you know, watch out world. These ladies and these youngsters are ready and they're eager, and they just need somebody to push them, and you know, somebody that they can pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm in a bind. How do I handle this? And I'm in a
Yeah,
boardroom full of men that are making me feel silly. What do I do? And it's just those little things that people need sometimes. So,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I
No, you're
do
right.
feel like,
And I guess there's a success, what does success look like, which is the typical question. Success in this case will look like if we stop having to define down gender lines and we just talk about people in print. You know, I
yes,
do quite a lot of work in the sports world, and in fact, I was talking to somebody earlier on today saying I don't see the difference between boys' sport and girls' sport. It's just sport. So, you
sure.
know, I guess, so, you know, Women in Print is doing a fantastic job of highlighting the need for that there shouldn't be a women in print. There should just be a people in print. And you know, can you see that? Can you see that on the horizon?
I can see that on the horizon. I do feel in Africa, though, because of culture, we do have a lot more challenges. And,
Mm,
you know, I know that obviously there's the Girls Who Print, which is very successful. I mean, Deborah Korn's
yep.
obviously done a brilliant job getting that off the ground. I do feel in Africa there are a lot of different challenges because culture, you need to understand the different cultures.
Mm,
And those cultures are, you know, you've got to break down a lot of barriers. And I think you've almost got to do twice as hard to actually prove yourself in
mm,
those countries because they don't believe women should be in those positions or something, you know.
mm,
So you know, I see a huge change. And I think, you know, what we were discussing, I was discussing with the South African Print Federation is, you know, going forward, we shouldn't have you know, because it was, I think in the first few years, women were always the victims.
Mm.
And I think we're past that now. We're past that, and now it's like,
I agree.
you've got all the support you need. You've got these just so many programs that it's like, you can step up and own it now without feeling like I'm female and I'm gonna, I'm a
Yeah, yeah,
victim. That's gone.
yeah,
It's gone now.
yeah.
You got to also make your effort and make a change. But I do feel there's a lot of change coming, and it's exciting. I do think
Yes.
it's very, very exciting.
Well, it's exciting for the industry, full stop, isn't it? Really, because largely it doubles the people that might get involved, which is always a great starting point for any industry. But it opens all of those worlds up and all of those doors up that I was talking about, which is fantastic. So I
Yes.
absolutely salute you for doing that. It's a great initiative, and well done for the success you've had so far. Um, we're coming up to the end of our time in the lighthouse here, Jean, and I feel as though we should mention the unmentionable, which is Christmas, and because it's nearly upon us, and I'm interested to know, first and foremost, where are you spending it? Are you gonna stay warm in South Africa or come back to freezing London?
So I will be there next week, and I come do my Christmas shopping in London because I love Christmas in London. You get, you feel like it's Christmas, whereas it's very
Yes,
different here. In let's say in South Africa, everybody goes on vacation over December, and so you don't have big Christmases at your house. You have it at your holiday house or at your hotel or wherever you're going on vacation.
right.
But different type of Christmas, it's an outdoor Christmas hat with your bikinis on and your, your slops and stuff like that. Whereas, so I have the best of both worlds, but
Yeah,
Christmas Day itself, I've got two daughters here. I've now got a grandson here. My hubby's here. So we want to obviously spend it with the kids and
yeah, yeah.
grandchild and those kind of things. So
Brilliant,
yeah,
brilliant. Yeah,
definitely be
good.
doing
Well,
that.
I hope you have a fantastic holiday season. It does tend to be a season now, doesn't it? Really. So I come from the wine business, and Christmas was just the hardest work. So I've never had a lot of love for the Christmas season because for me it just reminds me of all the work that I had to do. Don't have to do it anymore. I can do this sort of stuff, which is much more fun. So I'm gradually beginning to love Christmas again. So it's taken a while.
I think you should come to South Africa and then get onto one of the wine buses, and you can go from vineyard to vineyard and do the wine tasting, the lunches. It rocks at this time of year. It's very festive, and then you can start enjoying what wine is meant to be: relax you and enjoy
Exactly,
it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, you had me at wine bus, to be honest. That just sounds like an amazing form of transport. So final thoughts, Jean. Really, just looking forward into next year. I know you've got a busy year coming up. What's first out the gate for you? When does work start again? For you in 2026, and what are you looking forward to the most?
So a lot of doors have been opening for me because obviously I've put it out there that I'm looking for opportunities, and as I say, a lot of giving back opportunities. So the FESPA Federation has got a FESPA Foundation where they have got huge charity drives to actually, um, let's say, they're throwing a lot of OEMs are putting money into it, and they are basically taking on schools that have got nothing and building it up for these kids. So I've become a volunteer in that. I'm going to be assisting with that. I think I can make a huge difference there. That I'm already starting to look at, schools in some of these far out places that nobody could even get to. So I'll be doing that in my holiday time, if you want to call it that.
Amazing.
I've got a few exciting things planned, a few exciting things happening. As I say, a lot of doors have opened. So as I say, this is, I almost feel like I'm meant to be back here. So
Okay.
it's a
That's a
fresh,
nice
clean
feeling, though,
start.
isn't it? That's when you
Yes,
get that sense that actually, do you know what? Maybe this is where the universe needs me right now. That's a nice feeling to have. A very settled
yes,
feeling.
yes. And it's great because, as I say, all these doors are opening that I've never even thought about, and it's like wow, and it's
Yeah,
meaningful stuff, which is at this
that's
point in
good.
time in my life, I want to
Yeah,
do that. So yeah,
that's
it's
good.
awesome.
Good. Well, good for you, and it's lovely for you. Thank you for finding the time to join us today on Print Island up here in the lighthouse. I hope the heating has come on now, and you're feeling much better than you were at the start of the show. So,
Might even go take a
I
dip outside.
I'm going to go and sweep the snow off my car, which is my job for the rest of the day. But listen, Jean Lloyd, I wish you a very happy Christmas to you and your family. It's lovely to speak to you today, and thank you for joining me on Print Island.
Thank you for the opportunity, and you've been awesome as always. And yeah, take care. And if I don't see you before, happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Great.